Madda, by the people, for the people.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukut.
And a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline Live. We're broadcasting, as we almost always do, when the circumstances allow us, live from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. My guest this evening is a member of the TNA, and he's a legal man. And of course, he is none other than Mr. M.A.Sumanthiran. Very good evening to you, Mr. Sumanthiran.
Good evening.
It appears to me, Mr. Sumanthiran, that things have got really out of hand now.
Yes.
The queues for everything from fuel, petrol, kerosene, diesel, medicines are in short supply. It has actually got worse, and the thinking was that having got rid of Mahinda Rajapaksa, maybe even temporarily, that's a good caveat, I think. The fact is that Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe, having come forward, it's over a month now. Nothing really has changed apart from a lot of talk, and really we as in the people are quite fed up with talk.
Yeah, actually I must concede that when he took over and started telling the country the truth, that was a refreshing change.
Absolutely.
And that was most welcome, because people needed to know the truth. But now that has become stale news.
Absolutely.
Every morning to be saying things are going to get worse, and he's like a prophet of doom. As Vimal Veera once said, he's like a weatherman, saying there'll be a cyclone tomorrow, a tsunami the other day, next day, and so on and so forth. I mean, and how that's going to help anyone or the country recover from the mess that we are in, no one knows.
Now, there's a lot of talk about the 21st Amendment, the 21st time the Constitution of Sri Lanka is being changed, or they're trying to change it now for the 21st time. And Sri Lanka, of course, is full of wits, and I suppose it's the only way to keep going. And I had a message in the last few moments which suggested that Sri Lanka will be awash with petrol, diesel, kerosene, gas, and that food will be freely available once the 21st Amendment is passed. So I thought that's rather witty. But in all seriousness, Mr. Sumanthiran, it appears that the people's voice is suggesting that no matter what these cosmetic changes are, in fact that is what it is, because it is cosmetic, because we haven't had any result. And it appears that the people's voice is really going towards an election, a fresh mandate.
Yes, of course. That's a logical conclusion one can come to. This government was mostly responsible for this economic downturn. I mean, all governments previously have been in some way or another responsible, but this sudden turnaround was entirely their doing, and that's why people wanted them out. You see, that's why the Prime Minister had to resign, that's why the Central Bank Governor had to resign, that's why the Secretary to the Treasury had to resign. All of them had to resign, and people understood that that must happen, because the wrongdoers must get out if you have to change things around. But the chief of the wrongdoers, the chief of the sinners, as it were, is still there in his seat, the President. He hasn't changed, and he has been given a respite. He has been given a little space now to continue, because Mr. Wickremesinghe went and took over the premiership without any condition.
But I mean, this is, I don't know, I can't think of any country where a person who wasn't elected by the people ends up being the Prime Minister of the country.
Well, Sri Lanka is a land like no other.
Absolutely, it's a land like no other. But it's you know, Mr. Wickremesinghe suggested to Channel 4 News that he came in here in a Churchillian move because of a crisis, and asked Matt Fry to learn his history.
Yeah, well, it was rather gallant of him to have stepped up to the plate, I thought. You know, no sane person was willing, in a sense, to take this challenge. But having said that, what he did actually gave the Rajapaksas breathing space, and they have regrouped. Mahinda Rajapaksa is able to come to parliament and even point a finger at the Aragalayas and say that you have blood on your hands, when he set all those goons to go and attack them.
Yeah.
So how things changed so fast.
Almost seamlessly.
Almost seamlessly, and the only thing that made it happen was Mr. Wickremesinghe accepting the Prime Minister's post without conditions.
What about the argument that if we are all talking democracy, then the voice of the 6.9 million, you know, the fact that the president was given a mandate and it can't be changed because people are protesting. What is the how do you respond to that kind of an argument?
Well, how I would respond is, why then did the president say that the Prime Minister will be changed? Why then did the president say, I will appoint an interim government? Surely that government of his had a near 2/3 return at the general election. Why did he have to do that? He admitted also that he made mistakes. 2 crucial mistakes he admitted.
Yeah.
Right? So people gave him the mandate, people gave his party a mandate, all that is true. But it's evident even to him that that mandate no longer is valid. That is why he made these changes. Why then would he otherwise appoint Mr. Wickremesinghe as the Prime Minister? He should have, if Mahinda Rajapaksa resigned of his own volition, the president should have appointed another person from the SLBP. They still have majority in parliament.
Yeah.
Why did he appoint a person who was a sole member of his party?
Yeah.
That too a party that did not win any seat, but had a national list given to it. So that shows that even the president, although he talks about 6.9 million giving him the mandate, even the president accepts and concedes that mandate is no longer valid. So there has to be a drastic change.
But what is it, in your observation, in your analysis, Mr. Sumanthiran, what is it that is keeping the president from saying, all right, if that's what you want, I'm going home, and resigning? What is it that is keeping him?
I don't know. I can only put it to the taste of power. And that it's not easily renounced. Buddhist he may be, but the desire to hold on to power seems to be very much there.
So the inability to let go.
Inability to let go. Also the fact that he and a lot of his associates faced a lot of charges, corruption and even other criminal charges, may have prompted them to think that they must be in the seat of power to face up to that, or have all of those cases withdrawn as we saw them happen, to get out of that kind of situation, that they need political power.
Do you think ever that these allegations of war crimes will ever go away, simply because it's not being addressed?
No, it will never go away. From Cambodia, we learned the lesson that after 30 years there was had to be a reckoning. That those things never go away. Just living in denial and saying odd things will not
actually
absolve you.
It's 13 years after the end of the war, and it's a pity that had it been addressed soon after the war, we would have been 13 years into reconciliation.
Yes, of course. All that you had to do was to have a robust an independent truth commission of sorts that would have brought out all that happened. Right? Both sides would have had to reckon with what happened.
Yes.
You see, and then I firmly believe that if such a thing was done in all honesty, transparently, then our people would have come to the point of realizing, all right, we must put that behind us. So there might have been certain cases that needed to be pursued, but in the overall sense, right, not to carry that forward, put that behind, and look to the future. That not being done is like a festering wound that it only gets worse with time.
And the TNA, where will you place your support? Will it be with Mr. Premadasa and the SJB, or will it be some other future alliance that may come about?
Well, we have to make those decisions at those moments. Last time round in 2015, when there was a coming together of Sirisena and Wickramasinghe, we gave it our fullest support, albeit from the opposition. We gave it our fullest support because we saw a semblance of hope. There are two main parties, except that Mr. Sirisena didn't have the full force of SLP behind him. But we thought, okay, there is a moment here, and we must give it our support. Unfortunately, it didn't work out the way we wanted it to. So we won't rush into anything. Even that time we did not join the government. Right? But anything that gives us hope of resolving this issue, we will give it our fullest support. I am saying that also not just because that will enable our people to live as equals in this country. I am also saying that from the perspective of this economic crisis that the country is facing, because I firmly believe that if that issue is resolved to the satisfaction of all the peoples of this country, that will give her an impetus, a fresh hope for this country in the minds of the world community. And that may be the thing that we need now to have hope in this country. And then the dollars will come. So long as people think that this country is doomed, not because of the economic crisis only, but because of its policies, because of the way they treat their the people who are minority in numbers, etc., etc., the country doesn't have a positive image in the world. But if the country makes a turn like Rwanda did, many other countries, they dealt with the, most important issue, then the world looks up and says, yeah, here is an example. We must all support.
Do you think it's this military mindset that precludes Gotabaya Rajapaksa from giving up the presidency? Because, the military, you order something and it's done. Because if you're the senior officer.
I think he came to the point of recognizing that he couldn't continue in some way or another, that he had to either step aside or at least give a timeline for the abolition of the office, the executive presidency. I think he seriously came to that point, and another 2 or 3 days he would have actually taken up at least the Bar Association's offer of giving a timeline and then moving into an interim phase. But as I said earlier, he didn't have to do that the moment Mr. Wickramasinghe agreed to take over premiership.
On that note, let's go for a quick break and take a peek at this evening's headline news from that wonderful primetime news team from News First. We'll see you on the other side of the break, shall we?
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali. Lives lost in fuel queues. Are the police exempted from the queues? Public transport services in limbo. Is the entire public sector at home tomorrow? Opposition against Adani. Sanat Nishantha's homecoming. Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
And welcome back to Newsline Live. I'm in conversation with Mr. M.A.Sumanthiran from the TNA. Mr. Sumanthiran, we have a question from a member of the public. How is it that, what is your view, what's your plan, what would your advisory be to get Sri Lanka out of this impasse?
Well, we've told the President in March at the all-party conference that he convened that there is one way that we can contribute, and that is the contributions from our diaspora in investments. We know of individual cases where they came and they were sent from pillar to post and they went back, and a lot of them don't come because they left this country with a lot of bitterness and so on. But if there was to be a proper political solution, there is every chance that they will come and put their dollars in here. They are in their own, the countries that they have made their own now, they are doing very well. Their economy is very strong.
Because they're part of this democratic system.
Yes, mostly in Western countries, and they have done well for themselves. All of them have, concern for their, from where they were born, where the schools that they were educated in, their villages, and so on. So they are keen to develop North, the East, and so on. But there has to be a shift in the minds of our people here, that let the North and East develop that way. Give them that freedom to do that. That will benefit the country.
How can we pressure President Gotabaya to step down? Another one from out there, from the public.
Well, if Mr. Wickremesinghe steps down, then the President will have to then start searching for answers. That's one way. And then we can pressurize him either to step down or to, as we thought earlier, he can agree to the 21st Amendment be the one that actually abolishes executive presidency. Referendum to confirm that, and along with the referendum, parliamentary elections, because today Parliament consists of people who are not people's representatives in the true sense anymore. You see, it's not a reflection of what the people think. Therefore, I think Parliament has actually lost the mandate. The President has, and sure enough the Parliament also has.
The line of questions coming in from members of the public are all the same. Things are getting worse and worse each day. As Mr. Sumanthiran says, the President must step down for dollars to come in. I think they're talking about how serious is this trust and confidence deficit that President Gotabaya is having at the moment. Obviously, there must be countries who are willing to come forward, but they are concerned about our track record in terms of foreign policy.
Yes, so long as the one who caused it is still in the seat of power, no one will have confidence.
With all those powers as well.
All of the powers still vest in him. So they promised when Prime Minister Wickremesinghe took over as Prime Minister, no, he did not take over the country, that a 21st Amendment will be brought in, and that will be restoring the 19th Amendment back, repealing the 20th, and that it is only the first step, a quick first step, and then we will do the abolition of the executive presidency. But now 1 month, we haven't even seen the 21st Amendment. Right? So,
do you get the feeling this is buying time?
Yes, they're just buying time. And as your messenger told you earlier, people are also wondering, how is this 21st Amendment going to solve our problem? You see, the connection between the political stability and actually putting food on the table, buying gas for them, people can't see the connection, and I don't blame them. We also have to stretch our minds to see that connection. But what I am saying is, unless you cross that line of and ensuring political stability, a government that is truly representative of the people, has the confidence of the people. You see, if this government does not have the confidence of the people of Sri Lanka, it's never going to have the confidence of the world outside.
And I couldn't but help notice today around the 5 o'clock mark, one of the commuter trains leaving Colombo going towards the south, it was jam-packed solid. And whilst it was stopped at the Bambipitia station, I just focused on some of the faces, and I thought to myself, these people are despondent. They're packed like sardines. We haven't really got rid of COVID, and people aren't talking that anymore. Some were wearing masks, some were not. There were some people actually on the roof of the train. There were lots of youngsters hanging out, and they're obviously going home after work, and they can't be sure that when they get home that they'll be able to have a meal, because who knows whether the person they left in charge of the gas queue has actually managed to get gas, and the person who was sent off to find the medicines, and so on. And I thought to myself, what is it that we, the people of Sri Lanka, what have we done to deserve this lot in life?
Yes, good question, because this was seen coming. It was seen quite a long time ago. No remedial measures taken, not just remedial measures not taken, everything done to actually fast track this fall. Because our urgent need is for food to keep our people alive and so on, we are letting all those culprits go free as well. It's a choice between finding something to eat, getting to work, come back, and going after the wrongdoers.
Mr. Sumanthiran, would you agree that this is a national crisis?
Of course it is.
Would you then, as a party, impose some conditions and say to the President, the Prime Minister, we'll come too and we will join hands, but these are our conditions?
Yes, we were willing to do that in all of those negotiations that took place. I represented the party in place of Mr. Sambandhan as a party leader, and at every turn I told the opposition party leaders who met that TNA's policy is not to join the central executive until the Tamil national question is resolved, but in the current situation we are willing to re-evaluate that position. We prepare to relook at that position if these conditions are met, and that had nothing to do with our issue. Those conditions were about abolition of executive presidency, Gotabaya Rajapaksa going out, and so on.
Mr. Sumanthiran, I want to ask you this question. Your party has got how many members in parliament?
10 at the moment.
10. So you're also a minority party.
Yes.
Um,
But we are the second largest in the opposition.
Of course. But, and which is what I want to ask you. Spurred by a member of the public who sent me this question, even the last time that you were on here. Do you feel that if this government, if President Gotabaya Rajapaksa wants to show that he is the ultimate democrat, has he ever asked you whether you would have been the Prime Minister?
No, he has not.
Because a lot of people, not only this person who sent me a message the last time, has said to me that if Sri Lanka wanted to solve several problems in one go, that this would have been the moment of greatness for Sri Lanka.
Yes, I think this is a moment still is for greatness for Sri Lanka. And that is why I am saying that long-standing issue over which we had 3 decades of bloodshed must also be resolved now. And if that is resolved, you know, the level of confidence in the country will rise to the sky, right, worldwide, right? It will bring back our people, invest, country will go towards prosperity. But for that, I mean, it's just 1 or 2 people saying that is not enough. Leaders of the community that is largest in number in the country must also come forward and say that, and show political intent and political will to make that happen.
In all fairness, President Gotabaya probably knows, and he's already said it apparently, that he will not seek re-election. So there's no need to test his popularity. And if he wants to go down, and he has this one last chance to do it, if he really wants to invite you to be the Prime Minister of the country, he will actually be remembered for the rest of history as the man who actually brought about lasting reconciliation.
Well, it's I suppose he'll be remembered for inviting, but that does not mean that I will accept.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that in the greater national interest that you may well.
Well, it's like this, Faraz. I'm a Democrat through and through. I'd like to think that, at least.
Yeah.
And if I were to come to a position like that, I would want a mandate from the people, you see, not feast on some difficulty that the country has fallen into and make use of that to do that. But I also realize that you need certain interim solutions as well, you see. So I'm not all that critical about Mr. Wickremesinghe taking over the premiership, even though he was not elected, etc. I criticize that move only because he did that and gave and dissipated this energy that had garnered together to make a real change in the country, and that got all sort of blown away by taking it without insisting on the condition that all other opposition parties insisted on.
I don't know what possessed Mr. Wickremesinghe to do this, because it is very obvious that Mr. Wickremesinghe really shines when he is the boss. In this case, he is not the boss. He is, in my view, and this is not the view of the network, but it is my view, that Mr. Wickremesinghe is merely a puppet, and the principal puppeteer is Mr. Basil Rajapaksa.
Well, I wouldn't be that critical in a sense. I mean, still think the one who's got the most amount of experience in governance is Mr. Wickremesinghe in the country, head and shoulders above everybody else on that count.
Yeah.
And that perhaps that was the best choice to be Prime Minister at this time. It's just that, you know, you let them off the hook, then they are in control, and he has no space. Every little decision is controlled by the Rajapaksas. So that's what has got the country into the position that we are in right now. But I think that it will change. People have seen that even Mr. Wickremesinghe is not able to deliver. If he was, as you say, given a free hand,
yes,
he may have delivered. Who knows?
Maybe it's my observation that Mr. Wickremesinghe shines when he is the boss, and in this case, he is certainly not the boss.
Yes.
Mr. Sumanthiran, thank you very much for being on Newsline Live. It's now time for the prime time news, but as always, I leave you with this message. God bless you all.